Hi there, welcome to Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Urbinary. I'm Giulia and today we have a special guest joining us, Danila. We have already met her in our second episode as one of the main organizers of the AESOP Young Academics Conference, and she has also been the track coordinators of Track 5 together with Amina and Busra. And today we'll delve into the discussions from her track. So welcome Danila, it's really nice to have you back here.
Hello, Giulia. Hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting me again. It's a pleasure to be back here.
Thank you. So here at Urbinary, we have pondered academia's role and impact a lot. I think that our podcast as a sort of tool, so a platform to challenge the academia that sometimes is a bit rigid, and we are trying to ensure knowledge disseminations to all, but also acknowledging its significance in shaping our collective future.
Urbinary.
Today we are here to discuss, as mentioned, the Track 5 content. The Track 5 was titled Toward Coexistence, Contested Social and Spatial Landscape in Transformation. And it explored the complex interplay between environmental, social, and spatial transformations in today's world. So as a first question, if you could share with us some of your initial expectation and motivation behind creating this track, and also why do you believe this topic holds special importance in today's context?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Giulia, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the origins of the track. As you will say, the theme of the track was to investigate the transition towards coexistence. Well, today words like ecology, belonging, coexistence are increasing use in narratives of urban planning and beyond. They all invite us to adopt a more holistic and therefore more ecological approach. And also, in recent years, the urban planning debate appears increasingly oriented towards concepts of inclusion, cohesion, sustainability, but yet in the effort of transform theories into practice, fragilities and fractures, discontinuities grow. So they all invite us to adopt a more holistic and therefore more ecological approach. In recent years also, the urban planning debate appears increasingly oriented towards concepts of inclusion, cohesion, sustainability, but yet in the effort of transform theories into practice, it appears even more fragilities, fractures, discontinuities, both between the various disciplines and also especially within the discipline of urban planning itself. So as we discussed in the episode with my colleagues Daphne and Abdallah, the 80th AESOP Conference Bridging Gaps Urban Planning for Coexistence was an opportunity for us to address some of the very difficult and also ambitious questions. So the track 5 within this context that was titled Towards Coexistence, Contesting Social and Spatial Landscapes in Transformation, can be considered also the umbrella track of the conference, from which it, in fact it takes also the title. And within this context, the purpose of the track was to explore the theme of coexistences. And in this regard, I like to stress the use of the plural, as we approach the topic since the very beginning as a composite framework of coexistences, rather a boxy topic, let's say. So, if I can add some words also regarding the origin of the topic, from the very beginning, the question was, what is coexistence? How can we coexist? How can we also explore such a complex topic without making superficial mistakes? Therefore, we understood that identifying the coexistences with capital last letter was the first challenge to be investigated. So together with when I say us, when I use the plural we, I'm mentioning Busra Ince and Amina Sahil which together we developed the track, who I'm sure that they are listening to us. So we received together 85 abstracts out of the almost 3,030 in total. So it was a great satisfaction for us to receive so many abstracts, but also then the hardest part came, how we can select only 10 of them. So since the very beginning, the purpose of our track was to give voice to those who find it most difficult to speak today. And I am speaking about minorities, the margins, the liminal spaces. So together with our track chairs, Gloria Pesina from Dasto Politecnico and Nikos Katsikis from TU Delft, we selected the stories that we considered most urgent. And I'm really talking about the stories, in the sense that for track 5, exploring the territories means getting to know the stories of the people who inhabit the territories, to investigate the relationships of coexistences between them and between also the ecosystem as a whole. And I have to say that it was a process not without difficulties, especially organizational ones. We had to resolve various twists and turns due to inability of some of our participants to travel, for example, for political reasons. And actually, it was for us the confirmation of the urgency of giving space to these voices.
I want to thank you for this answer, because I think we can already highlight some key points that also I think will be very visible in the interview we will do later. The first thing that I really like about your understanding of this track is the concept of coexistence at plural, in a plural way, and also the fact of giving space to those who have now a bit of difficulty to speak, and by telling their stories. And I think this concept of stories, it's really important in how the academia also interacts with the external world, because sometimes we are a bit distant from the everyday situations, that telling what is happening in an academia through stories can be sometimes probably more effective. So I really want to thank you for these answers. And moving on, the objectives, as you said, of track 5 was aim to foster critical reflections on the environmental and landscape transformations. So I would like to understand how do you envision this track challenging conventional views and promoting a more integrated approach to today planning. But also I am particularly wondering about your ideas on the roles of scholars and planners in addressing the challenges of planning territories for coexistence rather than exclusion. And I really want to do this question to you, because also when I interviewed you in the second episode with Abdallah and Daphne, I had the impression that the concept of coexistence was key in the conference in general, but I felt that for you was a very urgent topic.
Thank you, Giulia. I think that once again you use some very key words, and you touched down some very critical points for us to address, to be solved. And one was the problem of how can we frame the coexistence concept, how can we also make it more operational in urban planning. And also you use the word how, and actually it creates a bridge for us. I have to admit that thinking back to the beginnings of the track, probably moved by the enthusiasm of seeking for answers, there was a great deal of focus on the more operational dimension. If we look at the early conference materials, we often use the word how in the question. Now, after a couple of months, and that finally we can take a look at the materials that we collect, the results, I realized that beyond and perhaps before asking how, it is necessary to explore why. I think that the conference, probably more than provided answers open up even more questions. And for me, it was very interesting to seek to question and also to understand what are our responsibilities as planners and also what are our operational tools. And probably, in order to understand it better, might be necessary to understand what is behind um, the events, the phenomena that we observe, and then to understand how to approach it. So, what could be the best methodology or what kind of tools we might use. So, I think that the biggest problem that emerged from the track discussion was a problem of methods. The question is clear, but talking about coexistence, or as we said before, coexistences, some questions appear to be clear, but not all. So, analyzing after the conference, analyzing the materials that we collect also from the discussion of the track, I think that the biggest problem that emerged from the track discussion was a problem of methods. How does planner or urban planners use the tools that probably we already have? For what purpose do we use these tools that, again, we already have? And I'm thinking about, for example, of critical mapping, the critical use of the cartographic tool, for example. Or, moreover, there is a crucial issue that has entered the urban planning debate since the late 70s. And thanks to some political geographer, it's also finding a new centrality in planning. And this topic that we had the chance to explore through the track discussion I think is clear today. Places are still as spaces of power, and we as urban planners can transform the places. Therefore, we should be probably more aware, or we should remind more often to ourselves that we have the power and then also the responsibility to create narratives of places. And this is by no means a secondary tool, instrument of urban planning. This is a topic that is particularly relevant, particularly dear to me, the topic of creation of place identities, creation of place narratives, and I have to say that from the track discussion, I took many lessons. And for example, I'm thinking about what Nikos Katsitis mentioned, that we need to make visible the relations between the territories. We need to make visible what is invisible today, and how can we use the tools that probably we already have.
I would like to focus on two concepts that you said in this reflection. One I will ask you later. It's one of the questions I prepared for today regarding the Nikos reflection that he brought in his keynote speeches. But now I like to focus with you on the concept of methods and methodologies that you highlight now, because I think that in general in the conference there was a very diverse array of researchers, both from different backgrounds, university, and etc. And I think this reveals that we have a lot of different methodologies and approaches for understanding urban issue. So, do you think that there were in your track any particular research methodologies or approaches that stood out in the contribution? And also, how do you consider the impact of the track discussions and insights on future research or planning practices in the field?
Once again, another key question, and thank you for asking me, so giving me the opportunity to explain a bit also about our participants, which I think that were presenting very key issues. And you mentioned once again a word that I really like, I really appreciate, which is differences, because speaking about coexistence, we had the chance to observe how the diversity approaches, the diversities between one, let's say, one system represents the richness of the system itself. And I think it reminds a bit of the concept, it makes me think about the concept of the ecology, where the differences make the system even more rich. So somehow I think that our little environment of track 5 was very rich in sense of the diversity of geographies, approaches, and case studies that were presented. So I think that I have to also identify to make more clear to the audience how the track was structured. As I said before, was a very long process and was also difficult to understand how all these coexistences might fit together. So first of all, we divided the track into two sessions actually. The first part was concerning the socio-spatial aspects of political and social economic dynamics on territories. Vice versa, the second part of the track was addressing the effects of the environment and the landscape transformations on the process of place attachment, existence. Through the case study presented, we were observing how coexistence might be imposed or negotiated or might be insurgent. And on this last part, on this last concept, it was very interesting to explore whether and how insurgency might be considered the most radical stamp for coexistence. And also, I think that the broader umbrella of the track was to address the right to belong and the need to exist that today appears even more critical, as I'm thinking about also this morning when I came here to the Polemy Radio, that I had some difficulties because somehow the university was barriering, and appears it was very painful, honestly, and that's why I think we should have the courage to explore the right to belong and the need to coexist. As I know, and I'm very happy to discover that you will dedicate more time and more space to this topic that is totally worth of it. Thanks to, for example, the contribution of Mike Todry from the University of Haifa, and which was a participant track 5, and also thanks to Nikhil Shah from Politecnico di Milano. So I'm very happy because I think that through the discussion of the track that was very vibrant, and of course we open up many things, and we understood that actually we need more time, space, and attention to these key topics.
I'm very happy that you tell our listeners about your experience of today, because it was something that I wanted to comment as well. As we have this conference in Politecnico di Milano discussing about coexistence, so how do we coexist also with different political ideas and ideologies, but then we happen to be in a place where differences appear, because maybe we should say that outside the university there are some protesters who are occupying the square for what is happening in Palestine, and the university decided to close its gated for not let people enter, external people, let's say, enter within the university. But we have also to mention that in Italy university are at least most of them are public. So this is a bit strange if we have a conference talking about coexistence, but then we are not able to really coexist.
Very controversial.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
don't we belong to university as a students and PhD?
Exactly.
Can
but also,
enter?
Why do we discuss about some topics if then we are not able to take action to this topic? So thank you a lot for discussing about this.
Urbinary.
So another topic that you arose before is Nikos Katsikis discussion. In fact, during the conference, its track featured a keynote speech. In your case, it was the one of Nikos, who is an assistant professor at the Urbanism department from TU Delft. and he made a presentation on geographies of ecological surplus. And in his presentation, he mentioned the dominant meta-geographies of urbanization as city-centric and human-centered conditions, while highlighting the critical role in organizing social and ecological surplus. He kind of questioned the role of cartography in offering a multiscalar perspective of the planetary hinterlands. So, what I want to ask you is how do you perceive this largely invisible operational landscape of planetary urbanization when considering the theme of contested lands and coexistence of course based on the insight of Nikos?
Oof, great question. I would like to have enough experience to explain it very clearly. I think I need to let me unpack a bit your question to take up some key concepts that Nikos presented to us. For example, the concept of invisible or the operational landscape, and again, the concept of planetary urbanization. I will not go into this concept because they will deserve much more time to be explored in depth, and also because I could not synthesize them as well as Nikos did in his keynote speech. However, I want to take two main concepts, and explore it a little bit, and also put it in tension. And I'm thinking about the concept of the invisible relations on a planetary scale, and then the creation of contested lands on the local dimension, which in turn open up to crucial debates. The first one concerns the problem of scale. While we coexisting globally requires to overcome the distinction between local and global scales. I mean, probably not overcome, but to understand or to find another scale that might be, for example, mesoscale that Nikos was mentioning. While the other debates that I think that is crucial is how to show the invisible. Once again, I came back to this concept because it's for me, it was kind of enlightening. So these issues have implication both conceptually and then operationally. It seems to me that planning tools are often aimed to collect data and showing them. But as emerged from Nico's speech, the challenge of our time probably is to catch those intangible aspects and make them visible. The challenge of coexistence invites us, first of all, to overcome the boundaries that we ourselves withdrawn between the disciplines and methodologies. Rather than studying the phenomenon, probably we should study the relationships between phenomena.
Okay, thank you very much. So as you said, it's very complex understanding. So maybe we can also say our listeners that if they are interested, they can go deep in Nikos' understanding by researching his articles, or maybe even asking us some more specific questions.
Urbinary.
To move on and kind of conclude this sort of understanding of your track, I would like to ask you about the roundtable that you moderate. If I'm not wrong, as you said, track 5 was a sort of umbrella, as you said. So if I'm not wrong, also the roundtable was a final moment to sort of also encapsulate everything that was said throughout the conference. So the roundtable that you moderate was titled Effective Planning for Coexistence, New Ways to Make a Difference Now. And it tried to explore how urban planning paradigms can be oriented towards global coexistence. And you discussed these issues with your tracker Gloria Pessina and also Nikos Katsikis, and other guests from Politecnico di Milano who are Chiara Gerolli, Irene Bianchi, and also Miriam Karimi. I would like to share, if you could share with us some of your insights into the discussion that was held during this roundtable.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. First things that I want to highlight, honestly, from my perspective, As a female, I'm very happy and proud as well to remind that our round table was, let's say, dominated by the female presence as all the young researchers that were taking part, Gloria, Miriam, Chiara, Irene, and also Busra, Amina, me myself, we were all young women. So for me, it was very a pleasure to see the discussion, to see the stage, let's say. Now to come back to your question. Yes, the round table. The purpose of the round table was to reflect on the effectiveness of the concept of coexistence. The question was, how can we make difference now? Was very ambitious because once again we were focused about the how, the operational dimension, and also we have the immediate dimension because I think there was a great enthusiasm of trying to be something, trying to be part not just of the academia, but try to bridge that gap. So the purpose of the roundtable was to investigate the effectiveness of urban planning, which is a rich but still very fragmented framework of coexistences. So thanks to discussion led by Gloria Pessina, several new themes emerged, and I found them extremely interesting and, of course, worth of further investigation. I'm thinking, for example, on the theme of the positionality of urban planners and young researchers as well. Okay. So I'm thinking, for example, to the first topic of positionality of urban. I'm thinking, for example, on the very first topic of positionality of urban planners and also young researchers within the research world, and vice versa, how these relationships, how these perspectives can influence the gaze that we dedicate to the research. As suggested by Irene Bianchi, sometimes might be necessary the inversion between object and subject, for example. Or also, I'm thinking about the reflection by Miriam Karemi and Chiara Geroldi about the need to integrate some intangible aspects into urban planning, such as might be civil rights, for example, or more than human rights, more than human sphere. Yet, Nikos pointed out a key issue about the temporal dimension in urban planning. Okay. And once again, I think that Nikos proposed a very sharp view, a very enlightening view that was the one concerning the temporal dimension of urban planning. For example, he was saying that when asking ourselves about the effectiveness of planning, we should consider that planning itself is a long and time-consuming process, as he defined it, which therefore is in opposition to emergency situations that, of course, requires short, immediate solutions that we are supposed to have, but most of the time we don't have. So, in conclusion, I think that the roundtable discussion helped us to make progress towards the definition and also the instrumentalization of the concept of coexistence, and I'm referring to how can we make it operational. And it may sound mainstream, but it raises new questions rather than giving answers. But I think that in doing so, it boosts foster our curiosity. It foster also, it open up the worlds of possibility that we as young researchers, thinkers, planners, or architects, as I am, can explore in this world, also outside of academia.
Okay, so thank you a lot for sharing us this insight about the roundtable. Again, I think that if someone is more interested in delving into some of this topic, can go directly to the professor mentioned, or to us, and we can engage conversation. But I also would like to thank you for highlighting the fact that you work in a team that were composed mainly by women. We haven't still have the chance in this podcast to discuss the role of women in cities and in general in our society, but I really hope we can have a moment to discuss, because it's really important to also highlight that sometimes for women it's not just difficult to experience cities, but it's also difficult to experience the academia. So I'm very happy that you could have this moment of powerful women discussing
Yeah,
about
we need to raise our voice. We need to raise our position to take space, no?
yeah,
Take more
exactly,
space.
exactly. I'm very happy that you had this chance.
Urbinary.
Now, as a final question, we want to ask you something that we actually ask to all our participants, and that we will ask also to track 5 participants, which is kind of related to the topic of the conference. And the question is, how can we bridge the gap between academia and the broader community to translate academia insight into real-world impact?
Oof. And what were the questions? What were the answers of the others? No, I'm joking. I don't have a certain answer, of course. However, this is a question that I often ask myself, and I also tell myself that perhaps by fostering the courage to explore our intuitions and by using more creativity in the research, we might find an answer. I hope so.
Thank you, Danila. I think it was very nice to have you here again.
Thank you, Giulia.
Thank you.
Urbinary.
And for our listeners, stay tuned for the upcoming episode where we will further explore this topic that Danila introduced us by interviewing first Maisa Totri and then Nikhil Saha from Track 5. Urbinary is produced in collaboration with Poliradio, the official radio channel at Politecnico di Milano.
Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.